Well, good morning, America. David Vos here reporting from Oklahoma, and I hope you're having a wonderful day because I'm really having a wonderful day in spite of all the things that's going on in the world. And guess what? I just found out a little bit more about what they're planning. And yeah, it's disheartening. Very odd, but it fits together, and I see what they're doing. And you probably should stay tuned and hear about this. A dear friend of mine sent me this information and a couple of videos that somebody was talking about this information. And so I decided that I would like to tell all of you out there in the sound of my voice what's really going on. What's, the projection here. I'm told that Biden keeps talking about a dark winter. As you can see on your screen, it's right there. Live. Joe Biden says the U.S. still facing a very dark winter. Evidently, this term is and he knows what he's saying because he keeps saying it. I guess he said it a couple of times. It's a reference to something they did, I think, in 2001. It was a sort of a mock up of what might happen if we had a huge pandemic. And they were talking about what would happen is that this pandemic would kill a bunch of people. And because our entire economy, the world economy, is set up in a certain way that if you don't get the oil out of the ground to put it in the planes and the train cars and the trucks and the diesel trucks and so forth and get it across the world at the exact moment before it's spoiled, or all this has to run on time, like the mail. It's got to get there by the date, right? And you couldn't, our society's not a local thing. Nobody knows how to garden. We've forgotten what herbs were in the mount. Now it's pharmaceutical drugs. We don't have herbs. We don't have wise people in our cultures. We wouldn't know how to survive. We don't know how to light a fire in the woods. We don't know how to skin a buck, and run a trap line, as Hank Williams Jr. said. Of course, country boys will survive, and that we know. But, a few of us may know how to do a few of these things. But you see, they're going to make certain that you can't do any of that. They're going to burn down all the trees, starting with Australia and California and so forth. You think they won't do it? Well, they're doing it. And now they're going to have to get rid of all of the animals because that's where all these terrible diseases are coming from. Let me fill you in. So the dark winter projection thing is that things start falling. We lose the jobs, we lose the oil, the markets crash around the world. People start starving, and they don't care because they're hunkered down. They've got their supplies. They're behind their gates up on their mountain in their castle. This is what their plan is. You've heard of the Georgia Guidestones. Okay, enough said. Well, we got to be careful what we say. And it doesn't even really matter what I say. I guarantee if Biden wins, I won't be on the air here on YouTube much longer, my friends. I beg you, please, if you do enjoy watching my videos from at least time to time, and you think you'd like to make sure that keep track of what I'm putting out, because I'm going to be probably hitting this even harder now because of the fact that if this happens, I don't know yet. We don't know. Trump may pull through, but even then, these billionaires like Bill Gates, they got a plan, and they'll somewhere in the world this plan is going to start playing out. Now, no matter what these guys do, I know beyond a doubt that those of us who understand what's going on and are waking up are going to be able to sidestep a lot of this, get into the mountains. But what we need to know is what they're planning, what this present society and world is that they're putting on us. It's important for me to do these videos because some of you probably are starting to believe the bull. It's starting to pile up. I'm noticing people on Fox News that probably didn't believe in global warming and things like that, and all these weird, terrible things. We got to have a vaccine, and the flu virus is coming, and all these things that they were telling us. And I wouldn't be surprised if those people have said, look, we all got to come together now because, and they've convinced them, this global thing's real. We got to have the Green New Deal, whether they like it or not, because these people are just too stupid. The whole world's going to die because, oh my goodness, there's a flu vaccine going around. And what causes the flu? Birds, pigs, animals. We'll get to that here in a minute. So the dark winter is a reference that Biden is referencing. He knows what he's referencing. He's planning it. They keep telling you. He says now he's got a mandate. Him and Kamala Harris, the talking heads for the billionaires. They put them in. They put a prompter in front of him, and he smiles and tries to speak. He'll stumble on his words because he's looking at a prompter and hearing something in his ear. And if he doesn't hear it, then he stutters because he's not sure what they're saying. And he's got to stutter a little bit because he didn't catch what they said in his earpiece. So he's a puppet for these guys. He's not, remember, these aren't real human beings. These are senile old people that not sure where they're at half the time. Doesn't know who his wife is or what day of the week it is. But he's referencing this dark winter. Probably he doesn't even know what it is, but they've told him to reference it. It's like one of those little flash signs, like the Hollywood people are doing, flashing the signs, It's a little code so that those in the know understand. The dark winter is the plan, and it begins now. Buckle up. So we've talked about all of these different things that they might have planned. The global, they've been trying this for a long time. And it's obvious that they knew for a long time that this wasn't going to be easy. That they weren't going to just be able to pull the wool right over our eyes. And this is probably why some years ago, not too long ago, we were hearing about all the tanks and the armored vehicles going down the railroad tracks. And we said, well, where'd they go? Where'd they go? Well, they went into the cities, preparing for what's coming, riots, that they knew were going to happen because they had this all planned. And so I've heard it, you can turn on Google, and Google will tell you that they are telling you the global market will crash any day. Now, it could be today, tomorrow. It could be next year in the beginning of January, February. It could be any time. But more than likely, it seems to be that they're planning it for this year. Especially if Trump does win his court battle and gets in there. They will do everything they can to destroy our economy, because if they can't take this country over, then nobody can have it. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I believe. That's what they're saying. They're everybody owes a lot of money and they're going to forgive all debt. Well, what that means is that all wealth will be in the hands of the powerful elite. You will have nothing and you won't own anything. But if you want to eat, sounds a little reminiscent of Revelation chapter 12 and 13, does it not? Yes. If you want to eat and have a place to stay and live, you will do what they say. Let's just put it that way. And we'll throw a reference in to Revelation 13, where you will, every man, woman, and child, if they want to eat or buy and sell, shall partake of a mark upon their hand or upon their forehead. Friends, it's not just a vaccine. It's not just a test or a mask or a certain costume, or it's not just any one thing. It is the reference to a mark on your hand or forehead comes from Exodus and Deuteronomy, and it's talking about the law of Yahweh that they wrote upon their hand or forehead. The Orthodox over there, you'll notice they have the little square box on their forehead or on their hand, and that's filled with verses of the Old Testament law, the Torah. And so this is compared in the book of Revelation to the seal of the living God, living Theos, on your forehead. The righteous will have the seal, and that is the Holy Spirit, the Bible tells us. So it's law and the Spirit. It's the divine nature within us that they, got rid of Jesus for that. That was blasphemy. Compared to submitting to the rule of law. Remember, all laws in every part of the world is based on the Ten Commandments of Moses. And also the law of Hammurabi. Because remember, the people of the book, let's call it that, they went into captivity. Not all of the people of the book. 10 of the lost tribes are scattered around the world and lost, and they will be regathered. Jesus said, I was sent only into the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But the southern part, the Judeans were taken into captivity to Babylon. Well, they came out 70 years later, but the Bible keeps talking about 70 times 7 and 7 and 7. And if you keep sinning, I'll do it another 7 times. And if you keep sinning, I'll do it another 7 times. So the 70 that Jeremiah spoke of, coming from the Old Testament book of Exodus, where they would be punished 7 times, means a continued punishment. They weren't, just because they came out of Babylon at the end of 70 years, did not mean it was over. Because in the book of Revelation, it's still talking about those who are to come out of Babylon the Great. No longer the city of Babylon, but now the entire world system is based on this, because they never came out. When they came out physically, they never came out spiritually of the carnal Hammurabi laws, and they transformed the astrological esoteric wisdom. They went to the bottom of the wheel. They chose the lower deity. As Jesus said, he was baptized into the lowest river on earth, the Jordan, and he had to go down under. They put 12 rocks there at Gilgal, which means the wheel of rebirth. We had to go down into this world and suffer and die. Well, that is the carnal nature and the carnal laws that we're experiencing. And this is the beast that's in the sea, the Abyssios. And the god of the abyss is Hades in Greek, and the Romans called him Pluto. And yes, the Bible calls him Adonai. Father Adonai, Abi Adonai, Abaddon, in Revelation chapter 8 and 9. And he has the key to the abyss. And out from the abyss, when he comes out, because he was and is not, and yet shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, that is the beast. With 10 horns, all the kings of the world shall give their power and authority unto the beast. And they'll make an image unto the beast, and everyone will worship. And who can do battle with the beast? Whoa, he's going to die and be raised up, from the dead like Christ, because the Jews, see, they're still waiting for their Messiah. And Jesus said, when he comes in his own name, you will receive him. I have come in my Father's name, but you receive me not. So this is what we're up against. And they have to have a scenario. They have to have a plan. It's all got to be according to their law. Now, for some time then, they've been telling us that there's global warming. That was I'm not going to say, use your imagination. That was what they were saying. We're having global warming. They tried to pass laws I'll give them that. They tried. They tried to convince you to get down on your knees and submit willingly. But now you see you went and gone and done it. You didn't listen. And Fox News was spreading all these dang lies. So they had to take over Fox News and say, hey, buddy, you guys better pipe it down. Just like they pressured the president not to speak out and say it's a HOAX, an FRAUD. Just like he was basically humiliated and forced into the concept that he had to wear a veil, or, yeah, let's call it a veil, over his face at least once. So he did it publicly because it was like, oh, well, we're going to hog tie you and we're not going to let you win the election if you don't do this. Well, he didn't really know what to do. He had all these advisors telling him, you better bow, to the system, I guess. But nobody really trusted him in the end because it didn't look like he was really willing to do what he was supposed to do. So they're pulling out all the stops and they're going to do everything they can to get rid of him because that's just going to be a big thorn in their side if he wins. Either way, we the people will win. Trust me. And I go through that in many videos. In the last several videos, we've talked about how we will survive, and we will not have to be martyred during this great tribulation. That's not what this great tribulation is for. The book of Revelation says they would not repent of their sins when these plagues hit them. It was only to go upon those with the mark of the beast, and for those who have the seal of the living God, it was not allowed to touch them. The woman goes into the wilderness where she is prepared place. She has a place prepared by the Lord, and she is protected during the tribulation. We will be protected, and the earth will come to the woman's help, which is the stable Constitution of the United States. That is the basis for all true stability and law and order, is the Constitution of America, which is inalienable rights from Theos. And not arbitrary laws, and as the Apostle Paul says, a bondage and a curse that condemns all men. It's condemnation and will bring the wrath of that deity from the bottomless pit. It says he has great wrath, and knowing he had a short time, he comes down to the earth, and woe for the sea. But silence is in heaven for half an hour. The hour is 2,520 days, which is 7 years. Half of the hour is the last 1,260 days. And that's the great wrath that he has with his bowls of wrath. And the only reason that he can pour those bowls of wrath out upon mankind is for those of you who refuse, as the Apostle Paul says, the love of the truth, that you might be delivered from this wrath. But you choose unrighteousness, but you refuse the grace of the Lord, and you go back to that old law and put yourself under the bondage, under the curse. See, there's no condemnation in those who walk after Christ, but for anyone who refuses that love, then, he's patient with you. He's not willing any should perish. But at this juncture, you're not willing to see it because you're being deceived. And that's the great dragon who deceives every man, woman, and child to receive a mark in their forehead or in their hand and get the law and obey. Only the 144,000, the chosen, the elect, who remain until he comes, who stand on Mount Zion, which is the mountain of the Lord, which is based upon a foundation, a stable earth, and not like the tossing waves of the sea that's foaming out its own shame, and the mysterious illusions and the beasts and the ego that is full of fear and nightmares, that stirs up the waters and makes your boat toss and turn. But Christ is sleeping in the boat. All you got to do is wake him up and command the mountain and command the wind to stop blowing upon your, these fears and false theories and lies and deception. Stop that. You got to have victory. You got to have control of your thoughts. You have to bring every thought in subjection to Christ. And then the little boat will come to rest. And Christ will command the sea. Who is this man that commands the sea? And the wind should obey him. It is that inner spiritual power, the Son, the living Son of the living deity, who is you, because Christ is in you from the founding of the world. And this flesh is no part of his kingdom. We need to get out of the world and get out of Babylon. So you see, they never really got out of Babylon. But in the last days, the call goes forth again. Get out of her, my people, of this system. And how do we know? By loving one another. By the love that we have in ourselves. That's how we know that we belong to Christ. So what are they planning? Well, one of the things that they're talking about here is that all this these nasty things called the flu and the cold and these things that we've been dealing with for centuries, right? What people don't understand is that in this physical carnal world, you will die. This is not meant to be an eternal world. This is only a classroom. We're not supposed to. You see, the human genome evolves and gets better, and you learn by the things in which you suffer. It is designed in this physical world that there should be millions of little pollywogs turned into frogs, and the frogs cover the ground, and that's food for the gulls and the seagulls and the birds and the possums and the raccoons, and the snakes eat the frogs, and the birds eat the snakes, and the it's a cycle of life. And the little cells in your body, they are born into the world, and they're met with suffering and trials, and the weak don't survive. Only the strong survives. You say, well, that's terrible. That's terrible. No, because that's a natural process. Those who were weak need to go back and do it again. It's called reincarnation. And they go forward and they progress. He has a plan. The day unto the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. He's not slow respecting his promise. We have to understand that if you give birth to a child that is missing a snout, or a genetic defect, or he can't walk, it's not supposed to survive. But modern scientists have said, no. It's so important that we don't allow this, all the genetically messed up, crazy stuff that we're doing. We got to let it survive. But, you can't have abortions. No. See, that would make sense, huh? But no, they want abortions. They want to abort human babies. They have an agenda there. But the reason that they're trying to keep genetically misfits alive is because they want the human race to die off. So what's happening is the animals were supposed to give us almost like what they're doing. They got these things called vaccines, and they think that what is it? You're inoculated. So somehow you're putting a little bit of the virus in you, just a little bit. But see, they can't do it every day, so they just give you one shot a year or whatever it is of that particular disease, and somehow you build immunity supposedly. Although such a big shot that a lot of people get sick and die, and that's just the whole principle of these things. It's much worse than that, because now they're actually tainting the things, purposely trying to get us to come down with the things, if you understand what I mean. Knowing exactly what they're doing. Nanotechnology and Moderna, right? Or Johnson & Johnson, which came out of Nazi Germany, and Project Paperclip. Along with Bill Gates' dad and his mom, who was over Planned Parenthood. And we could go on and on and on. But they have an agenda. They have a plan. And their plan is to make everything sick. So they're using rationalism to explain things, like Darwinism, Freud. And now we believe it. Now they've convinced us that, we're all crazy because our mama showed cleavage. Or because, somehow we've got some repressed sexual disorder. It's not because society is destroying our minds. No, that couldn't be it. And somehow or another, yes, there's evolution, but there's no divine being. There's no love. There's no purpose. When you die, that's it. Bye-bye. So we have to have a mad rush to go out and make AI so we can live forever inside of a prison. All kinds of convoluted ideas. Well, now they're saying that all these diseases that have in the past killed people. Well, who are they killing? The old and the sick. That's what they're supposed to do. That's their job. So what are we going to do? Round up all the old people, 90, 80 years old, put them in a senior home and put them in a little bubble and say, now, let's see if we can get them to 92. Hopefully they can live to be 93 this way. Meanwhile, the entire world goes on lockdown, and we got to kill all the animals because, of course, there's disease coming from the animals. What kind of disease? Well, it's a plague, Dave. It's a plague. What is it? Corona. All right. What's corona? It is it's the cold. The common cold. We've had it for thousands of years. And yeah, the common cold, just like the flu, it kills people. No, it doesn't. But you see, here's what in their convoluted way of thinking. You're 90 years old and you've got cancer, dementia, which, remember, the dementia is coming from the drugs that they're giving the old people. The pharmaceutical drugs. They're so, all these chemicals, of course it's killing their brain. They sit them in a little wheelchair in a little room. They don't get to go walking. They're not even allowed to have their family come visit them anymore because of the deadly thing. So this is how we're going to go about it, right? Back to nature, where we just live with the animals, right? It's your little babies playing with cats and dogs in the dirt, right? Licking their hands after they just grabbed onto the dog's tail, And yeah, they came down with a deadly cold coronavirus, but they were children. They got the sniffles. It was like a natural vaccine, a real immune booster, and it made them strong, and the strong survived. But sure, there were some weak in the world, very, very genetically weak people that would perhaps already be fighting, not making the proper white blood cells in their body, or they're immune deficient or something because of some crazy, maybe their mother had been on cocaine when they were born, and whiskey and wild, men, and they had somehow contracted a disease that they invented, a couple hundred years ago and started spreading around. Or they just somehow got a bad match genetically, because you see, that's how the genes work. If you get a bad mixture, if you get brown bears producing brown bears in Alaska, or northern Alaska, where it's always snow, they won't survive. So all the brown bears die off. Well, that's good, because otherwise all the bears, if they were always brown and they never came out genetically stopped, if the brown ones didn't die, and then the genetic code started turning more and more white up there, then no bears would survive in Alaska. It's the way it works, the survival of the fittest. It would destroy all human beings on the face of the earth if you start getting rid of all these animals. If we stop eating meat, we're not getting an immune system, because the bacteria, the cow goes out and eats all the vegetation. We can't eat thistles and daisies and dandelion roots. It's not digestible. We can make tea out of that, but the point is that these cows and cattle and goats, they eat all the vegetation and they give us the phytonutrients and chemicals. But you see, they don't even understand what a phytochemical is. They don't know that you even need it. They want you to eat a genetically modified piece of corn or soy that they created in the lab, and they know that it's giving you a no immune system and that you'll only live 30, 40 years, but they don't care, because you're going to go into your room and turn on the phone and live a life of bliss until you, in your ignorance, not even knowing what the world was that you were born into. You're not learning the proper things by sitting in your home looking at propaganda. You're not outside learning to build a fire or trap a deer. Oh, you got to be vegetarian. Blah, 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 blah. That's the New Age, right? I don't like the word New Age, because most of the New Age teachings were good, like reincarnation and karma and stuff we started learning. They brought some of the Eastern teachings and showed us that is actually what the Bible taught, but they didn't want you to know that. But the other thing about the New Age teaching is that they were, just like Christianity, they were originally taking these truths from the esoteric ancient scripture, but they were making millions and writing books and talking about how to breathe and lighting candles and They all got to become Reiki masters now, and we don't even know what that means. And I see your aura, and even though physical eyes can't see spirit, but they lied to us. They said, "Oh, you got to go find your soulmate." Well, that sounds likely, but they got this from this thing called the twin flame, and because they misunderstood that symbolism, they started telling everybody you had a twin flame, and that's not what that meant. Your twin flame is your physical and your spiritual. You have two. And the tongue of fire that split in twain on the top of the apostles' head when they received the Holy Spirit was the igniting or the lighting of the candles or the chakras in your body, the energies. And it lights up and ignites and makes your body come alive. And there's the wedding of the flesh and spirit. Because you remember, the woman is veiled. You lift her veil and now you know her. There has to become, there's a separation right now between man and woman. They must be one flesh. And this is a symbol. This is ancient esoteric wisdom, like the temple that they used to build were just shadows and types. But now they're so carnal-minded, they're going to go out and build a temple and think that that's somehow or another holy. And the apostles told us this was a type and a shadow. The temple, you are the temple of the living deity. This scripture is a code book to teach you how to live. And the wedding that we had with Yahweh, and this we will do, and it was verified, and at the end of the vows that we made with Yahweh, we'll do what we're told, and blah, 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 or death do us part. That was a symbol of our being like a prostitute, having an illicit relationship with this carnal earth. We're supposed to be wed to the spirit. But I digress. Back to the genetic thing that they're messing up in the world. So they want billions of people because they're using our minds. They're going to be plugging these things into our minds. It's going to be biological technology, biotech. And the phone's not going to be something you interact with your eye, but you'll literally have a chip in your forehead. A Neuralink. You will be doing computations in your subconscious mind while you pass the time doing games and wasting away your little mind and your life. And that's what they want you to do. They don't want you to go outside. You might get sick. They don't want animals out there, and because the animals are keeping you healthy. They're going to tell you it's killing you. Why, you could catch the cold. All the diseases come from the animals. We can't digest the vegetation. If you didn't eat animal meat, you would not have the phytochemicals that your body absolutely must need. Cannabinoids. There's cannabinoid receptors in your body. If you don't get cannabinoids, those cannabinoids are not just in cannabis. They're in other plants, and you have opioids in some plants, and we have opioid receptors and polyphenols and other phytochemicals, many of them in all the plants and vegetation. We can digest roots and leaves. The animals do that. The fish of the sea. So, as I said, the pollywog is born. He crawls out of the water. The snake eats the frog. The bird eats the snake. And down the chain it goes until it comes to the human. And if you don't think that's scriptural, it's even in the Nag Hammadi library. The man who eats the lion, or the lion who eats the man and becomes a man. See? In other words, you're reversing evolution. Don't allow your carnal, natural self to take over your spiritual, human, divine, godlike being within you. And the way to do that is to grow in grace and in truth, and from glory into glory. It's not natural that we should just, Jesus said, if the spirit was born from the flesh, that is a miracle of miracles. See, it's a miracle to think that the flesh could come out of the spirit, that we were once spirit and now we're flesh. That's a miracle to imagine. But what a miracle if you had no beginning, no spiritual divine being within you. You were just flesh. That's what he's talking about. So we are essentially within ourselves divine beings who came down into this world. And we're here to learn. We're not here to stay. But we have forgotten who we are. They're hiding the scriptures and the meaning of the scriptures. And they're forcing us to believe that we're no longer to do like the ancient esoteric believers, like the Native Americans who hunted and then got down on their knees and gave thanks because they knew that they were getting temporary life, that the animal gave them life and they gave thanks. They didn't misuse the earth, but they gave thanks. And they understood the cycle and they taught their children. And they honored nature, and they knew that that deer would one day become a human. And they knew that one day they would die, and they honored it and accepted it. They probably didn't understand that the animal ate the vegetation and there were phytochemicals and and all those biologies that keeps you alive and gives you the gut bacteria that gives you an immune system so that you can survive and live and be healthy. All of that is inside the liver and in the bone marrow and in the meat and in the fatty pieces like the kidney and the liver and the heart and the pancreas. And those are the fatty pieces that were the most special parts. Remember Cain and Abel? Well, Abel gave an offering of the fatty pieces of the lamb. But Cain brought vegetables and it was not pleasing. Because you see, we can't survive. We can't have life by eating. Originally, we ate fruit, not roots and leaves. But Yahweh cursed the earth, and when He put the curse upon the earth, that it would not produce but thorns and thistles. And remember what Jesus said: you don't get food from thistles or thorns. You don't get grapes from thorns, He says, or So this is just the law. The world is in its wild nature with thorns and thistles. We're not getting much out of it. The fruit is not even edible. So they got these hybridized fruits like bananas and apples and oranges now, and they're just full of sugar. Originally, fruit that our Father in heaven made from photosynthesis is what we were supposed to eat. But the earth is fallen into the state, and the ground was cursed. And Yahweh tells Adam, He says, the ground is cursed on your account, and thorns and thistles it shall grow for thee. And by the sweat of your face, agricultural, you'll go out and till the soil and produce bread. And you'll eat that bread until you die. And that bread in Hebrew is lachem. Cham is the same word as Ham. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham, or Cham, means the burnt one. And so lachem means burnt food or processed food that you go out and till the soil and you get these little grains called wheat and you smash them up and you burn it in the oven and you make bread. And that leads to death, that processed food. And so the only way to have any kind of life is you take the animal's life, you put it on an altar, which is what? Stones. You take the hide, and that in the Hebrew is the covering, atonement. So remember, Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Then they took the fig leaves and hid in their carnal nature. They were blinded in this carnal nature. They clothed their nakedness. They didn't have immortality. But then Yahweh comes along and put coats of skin upon them. In other words, he made a sacrifice, and they had temporary life from the meat, not eternal life, and they were to give thanks. So this world that's run by Yahweh and His laws is temporary. Anyone who puts themselves in this world, the world is passing away, so is this desire. My team's no part of this world. We're spiritual beings. But as long as we're on this earth and in this world, if you want to be healthy and raise your children, we're supposed to go through the things that we're doing here. We're supposed to take an animal and understand that animal is a cycle of life. But I digress. That was something I wanted to kind of explain, because a lot of you probably think, oh, wait a minute, you're supposed to be vegetarian, so maybe the government's doing a good thing for us. No, vegetarians get very sick. There are many vitamins, nutrients, and fatty acids and things that you cannot, period, absolutely cannot get from vegetation. Even things that you think you can get from vegetation, like vitamin A, you can't get from vegetation. That's a different kind of vitamin A. You need the oil-based, animal-based vitamin A. Same with many vitamin E's and there's different kinds of vitamin E. And people don't tell you that. They say, oh, you get plenty of vitamin A from carrots. Actually, no. Not even, true that you get plenty from, regular vitamin A or carotene. But anyway, they tell you that stuff like resveratrol that you get from red wine or pomegranates, it's just a nice thing. It's an anti-aging little thing. It's a nice little thing if you get it, No, anti-aging is a fraudulent word. What it means is you're going to get old very fast and die without it. It's necessary. It is vital. And that comes from the skin of the plants. So you have to eat those things. But there are many plants that we cannot eat. It was designed that we would eat berries. Rarely. They grow in the summer and there's a little sugar in there, and then that way we can build up a little fat for the winter. But for the most part, during the winter, the curse is upon the earth. We can't eat berries. There are no berries and nuts. You can save them up and dry the berries, yes, but man wasn't made to. There's not a protein in the berry. You've got to go and follow the cycle of life, and then teach your children what the cycle is, and honor it, and understand that the weak don't make it. The alligator lays down there in the Nile, the crocodile, I should say, and he waits for the wildebeest to go across the river. Well, there's always a young one or a weak one, and he picks them off. And that is, you say, oh, that's just not fair. We've got to do something about this. And we stop, the crocodile from eating the wildebeest, and then what? Well, then, not only does the crocodile starve to death and go away, well, good, they're nasty little creatures, okay, but now all the wildebeest go away. Because after a few generations of the weak not dying, their gene pool gets tainted and they all get sick and die. So you see, what they're trying to do by stopping human beings from eating meat and catching the cold and making us believe that the cold virus or the flu virus is dangerous is weakening our immune system. And then on top of that, they'll give us, instead of the herbs, like teas and things, which are for the healing of the nations, the Bible says, like cannabis, the herbs, they turn around and extract it. It's not a whole food. They put chemicals into your body, and it's dangerous. Pharmaceutical drugs is actually in the book of Revelation chapter 18. That's how they're going to deceive the world. The whole world will be deceived by the sorcery. And that word in Greek is pharmaceutical drug. So their pharmaceutical drugs are killing the world, and their lies and the deception is trying to get us in such a weakened state. Now remember, it's not just a physical weakened state, but spiritually and mentally too weak and docile, plugging us into the phone so that we don't understand what's going on. The world will become a place that you will not want to live in. I saw a video that a friend of mine sent me about a possible scenario for the future when we no longer have ownership of property. You won't own a car because you can just, boom, call somebody and they'll send the car will pull up at your door, a self-driving car, in seconds. You can go anywhere you want for free. Well, wouldn't that be easier, Dave? That would just be so wonderful. We don't have to worry about buying and selling, and it's just a bad system. No, the best way to live is in nature. And understanding that this is not a place of eternity. We're not trying to save this world. We're trying to learn from it and go back to our Heavenly Father and our Divine Mother. We want wisdom, not ignorance. We want bliss, which means blessings, not a curse, which is the law, and control. We are divine children. But in this flesh, It's like a brute beast. Christ came riding in Jerusalem on the back of an ass. He had a bit in its mouth, and he was controlling it. It didn't control him. He used it with wisdom and knowledge. What these people are doing is they're deceiving us, to use the world, to deceive us about the world we live in, so that we get sick and die. Our legs will atrophy, and we'll lay in bed and drink whiskey and die and take their pharmaceutical drugs. And they're telling us that all of these animals must be wiped off the face of the earth now. So in Holland, they're getting rid of ducks and chickens, mass murdering them. And in Sweden, I think it is, they're mass murdering millions and millions of mink. They're going to get rid of the mink farming because they think that possibly they got the COVID. Well, whatever virus these mink have, they've had for thousands of years. They're talking about the feral hogs in Texas. Even the pig farmers, they're going to have to wipe out pig farming because it's too dangerous now. The COVID's going to spread through the pigs. The COVID's going to spread through the chickens. Well, you know what? They're probably right in this sense. It's not natural to have these huge ranches with all these little chickens in cages. That is wrong, and I would like that to go away. However, they want to get rid of the wild animals as well. They want to make you believe that just eating meat or being around germs, you got to wash your hands and sanitize your face and wear a mask and live in a bubble and don't touch nothing, and you can't own a cat. I guarantee it's going to get to the point where you're not going to be allowed to have a dog or a cat. I suppose, I can't imagine that they would get to the place where they would think, oh, we got to go kill all the wild animals. But then again, think about it. Where's all the buffalo? Now, if they get rid of the cows, which they literally are telling us they're going to do, pigs, cows, chickens, and ducks, and all these things that we've been eating, gone. Mink, anything that's farmed or, all the agriculture is already gone. Monsanto's genetically modified everything. And this is killing us. I know a lot of you out there think, no, Dave, that you're wrong. Jesus was a vegetarian. No, he didn't. He ate fish. And he gave his disciples fish. And that's just what we know. Nowhere in the Bible to say Jesus didn't eat meat. It is a lie that is from the pit of hell. It's designed to destroy us. Yes, we shouldn't be putting chickens in little cages and hogs in little pens, and they're eating their own feces and all this. Yes, and that does spread disease more, than, I remember growing up, 70s and 80s and stuff like that. And I remember hearing all this stuff about, don't eat the rabbits. Rabbits are dangerous. Don't shoot them in the wild and eat them. They'll give you a disease. And people were scared. To this day, I don't know if anybody goes out in the wild and eats rabbits or possum, or they used to, or squirrel, or you say, oh my goodness, Dave, that's just terrible. What are you talking about? Well, it's no different than eating a wild hog or a wild deer. Look, my dad went out and got a buck every year, and we ate that deer, that venison every year, and we never got sick. See, they couldn't foist that one on us. I know people all over Texas that eat those feral hogs. They're not getting sick. They may be building an immune system, but they're not getting sick. They might get cold, but that just strengthens their immune system. You build an immunity. If they take all that away, then you won't have an immunity built up. And then boom, guess what? Nature will kill you. All of this is lies. The esoteric wisdom does not teach that we are not to eat animals. The esoteric wisdom teaches to use things with balance and wisdom and understanding, and to say a prayer of thanks for everything that we receive from nature and the cycle of life and reincarnation. That is the esoteric ancient wisdom. The lies that we've been told, they're all coming together. They've been trying to promote this kind of New Age, we'll say, teaching that says we're not allowed to eat meat. We've got to be vegetarian. You see people walking around in the hospital, coming down with leukemia and other cancers and stuff. Look, if you had a good immune system, you wouldn't be coming down and succumbing to these diseases. If you didn't take all their chemicals and their pharmaceutical drugs, you wouldn't be tired and sick and having these autoimmune deficiency diseases. Even, yes, Arthritis is an autoimmune deficiency. And that means that you don't have the proper bacteria in your gut. So therefore you have inflammation. And the bacteria means, yes, the bacteria that's in nature, in wild plants and animals. And that's why bone broth soup is so good for you, because that's where the animal stores all those phytochemicals and bacteria that you need for your gut biome. And that's why eating liver was always told, your grandma told you, eat your liver and onions, right? Now, most of you have never heard of it and don't want it. And say, ew. Yuck, sardines, woo, clams, all that stuff is good for you. Crabs, lobster, all that's good for you. Did you not read in the scriptures that Peter was a fisherman? Well, he must have been a sinner, huh? And after Christ died, they wasn't quite sure what to think. They went back to fishing. And then Jesus came back, resurrected from the dead, and he said, oh, now, Peter, now I'm going to teach you the real truth. Stop your fishing there, buddy. Huh? No. He said, hey, I'm the Lord. Do you not recognize me? Here, sit down. And he took some fish, and he burned it on he cooked it over of the fire. And he fed it to them. And their eyes became opened. And they recognized him, that inner spiritual Christ within you, the truth, the reality. So, yeah. It's coming. The first thing, I guess they're already getting rid of, I don't know how many millions of mink in Sweden, ducks and chickens in Holland, and all around the world. I mean, I don't even know all the different places. I've got posted up on this video some articles that I've got off the internet to show you that they're going to get rid of the cattle, the pigs, the wild pigs, the tame pigs, you're not going to be able to go to the store and get you some bacon and eggs. It's not going to, eggs probably bad for you too, right? And milk, that's bad though. Human beings are not allowed to eat milk. Oh, well, wait a minute. Aren't babies drinking milk when they're born? Oh, yeah, but that's because, why, that's the wild. We've overcome that. We're cyberborgs now, Dave. Don't you know? We're not drinking milk. Well, yeah, I know some of you are going to say, that's cow's milk. We're not supposed to eat. Well, then why does cows have this big old udder that you can continue to milk like a goat or a cow and then make cheese with it and butter? And they've been doing it for thousands of years. And now you're going to come along and tell me no? So you spent what now? How many years have you spent as a vegetarian? And you feel so good about yourself? Look, I'm with you. I did it. I succumbed to the whole thing too. I was a vegetarian for 11 years. It almost killed me. One day I will tell you all, guys, how close I came to death. Because I wouldn't eat meat. Refused to eat meat for 11 years. Until I was so sick I could not. I had no idea what to do. I was dying. I couldn't move. I'll tell you more about it one day. And then the Lord gave me some revelation, and I understood where I was wrong. And I realized that I had been accepting a lie. And it took a while to build up my gut bacteria again, so that I had an immune system, so that I was not pale and tossing and turning, and my bones are hurting and sick and dying and I know a lot of you say, oh no, I feel much better as a vegetarian. No, what you feel much better as is somebody who's not eating so much sugar and candy and garbage. Yeah, don't eat that. Don't eat white flour. Eat whole foods and grains. But you need those phytochemicals. So if you're not going to eat meat, what are you going to do? Go out and pick up daisies and eat the daisy roots and thistle, and wild lettuce, and you're going to go out and, well, yeah, they used to do all that too. They eat their meat and their bitter greens with it, and the onions and the leeks. And yeah, you need some of that in your diet for roughage and for fiber. You can't just eat meat. You got to have some fiber. And we need a balance of everything. But there's just a lot of vegetation especially in the wintertime, there isn't any vegetation in places in the north at all, or in the deserts. In those kinds of scenarios, you have to have goats and cattle to go and mow down the grass and the leaves, and they'll eat oak leaves and little branches and all kinds of things, all kinds of little phytochemicals in there that you could never find and get into your diet without partaking of animal flesh. And as I've said a whole many times before, there are certain other phytochemicals, or there are certain other nutrients such as fatty acids that you must have to repair the tissue in your brain, your heart tissue, your skin. You know, you're going to start getting old and aged if you're not eating a lot of animal fat. And you were told not to eat that, but that was a lie. So, yeah. They're burning down the forest. And of course they're going to say, oh, we don't know what's going on. Oh, my goodness. Remember when the global warming thing was a little trick that they were, and they're still going to use that. They're going to, before they were trying to get us legislative, go in and make laws, say we got to get rid of eating meat and we got to, all this stuff. And we didn't go for it. So now they're going to go ahead and force it on us with this dark winter that's coming. And it's not going to make us healthier. When did anything they ever did make us healthier? Their pharmaceutical drugs are not curing cancer. We still got cancer. In fact, as I've said, there were no cancer. There's no report of cancer in ancient historical texts, such as the Bible. It's not in there. Or Sumerian texts, or Babylonian, or Akkadian, or Egyptian, or Mesoamerican, or anything. Well, we don't have much of Mesoamerican, but we don't have any reference to these kinds of diseases by Herodotus or Manetho or any ancient historian. The Bible mentions leprosy and withered hands. In other words, like sometimes it translates it palsy or something like that. But it was just, in the Bible, it just means that they had genetic defect. They didn't have the use of their legs. Maybe they fell, broke, pinched a nerve. They didn't have, their leg was withered. Their hand was withered. But it never mentions all of these diseases that we have today, like cancer and the flu and measles and mumps. So, and Aristotle, remember, 600 BC, and, well, Pythagoras and 500 BC and 400 BC and Plato and these guys, they talked about disease and, Asclepius and these people who were doctors and started physicians and the whole thing that we're doing today. And they took the pledge, the Hippocratic Oath. I shall do no harm. That means, and it's spoken there, you shall not commit an abortion or use a knife or surgery or any pharmaceutical drugs, only to heal with herbs and natural means. But in those days, in their books and many treatises that Pythagoras and Aristotle and these people wrote, they don't mention cancer and these diseases that we have today. We know that it didn't exist until modern times. And I guarantee it's going to get a lot worse when they keep it up, thinking they're God, right? They sit in the seat of God, not just the seat of Moses. The world is upside down and backwards. That's what a lie is. It's false information, backwards. And that's what the devil's here to do, is to teach us backwards information, to make you confused, to make you sick, to make you frail. But not just in your body. That's not nearly as important as to make your mind sick, to make you ignorant, so that you don't have the phytochemicals that you get in nature, and therefore your pituitary and your pineal gland doesn't work, and you don't dream, and you don't receive the telepathic communication. You don't have communion, because you're too busy stressed out and worried about what to put on, what to wear, and what the government's telling you, and whether, you're riddled with doubt and guilt because they told you you're a sinner and you ain't worthy of life, and you're believing a lie. And the lie goes deep, and the rabbit hole goes deep. I know a lot of you people, a lot of my subscribers will not agree with half of what I've said today. But it may possibly make you think. And I'll be doing more videos and explaining and talking about this more. We're going to discuss this and come to an accurate knowledge of the truth. Because this means eternal life, that we might know thee, the only God, the only divine being, which is in all of us, in all, above all, and through all, according to the Apostle Paul, and the one whom you sent forth, Jesus Christ. And that word knowledge there is gnosis. And the early Gnostics were the true Christians. The ancient Sethian Gnostics. Some of these other Valentinian Gnostics come later. They got off on a lot of things, because it was an apostasy. After 200-300 years, they started losing the ancient truths because the Catholic Church burned all the libraries and murdered all the wizards, which means the wise ones. Yeah, you've been fooled. I'm going to go, guys. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.